Hello, my name is Alex, and welcome to part 2 of my 1-48 Suyata Panther build. As you can see, a lot has changed since the last update, including, well, a little turret. But to begin, I've got to do a little bit of disassembly. As you can see, some of the fit on this is so good that a lot of these parts are press fit into place. Now, I'm going to begin with the lower interior here. So to begin with, I started out by assembling everything. The fit was exceptional. Everything looks very nice. Fits together quite well. Injector pin marks, as you can see, were not a huge deal. But as the instructions said, I started forwards and went back. And as I did it, I left parts in little sub-assemblies. For instance, the engine here, I left out and painted a separate color. But anyway, the first thing I did, of course, was I assembled the firewall back here and all this, the basic stuff. Then I hit the entire thing with this. This is Tamiya's fine surface oxide red primer, which is an excellent color for the interior of a Panther, or at least part of it. After I did that, I began to paint some of the other parts. For instance, the transmission here was painted with Tamiya's field blue. And the engine itself, although you can't see it underneath the white part, was painted green with this black-green color. And then, for anything that you see that was white, I did not have access to an airbrush at the time. So, I used this. This is a paint from Citadel. It's called Corax White. Whites are notoriously hard to hand paint, but this one hand painted perfectly. Every pit of white that you see here is hand painted. And it looks just great. And by the way, any oddities with the finish, noticing some of the stuff like this is intentional to make it look more grimy. That was accomplished by watering down this wash here, a black wash, and going over the entire thing. Anyway, back to the parts of this. So that's how that was painted. Anything that was silver was painted with a variety of silver colors. I can't exactly remember which. Some included this here. At some points I used this one here. It doesn't really matter. Any silver would really do. One of the only bad things I can say about the process of painting this interior was these shells. And that's not because of any fault of Suyata's, but as you can see, there's a lot of them. And on each one, you have to paint the tip white. And this took forever and a half. It really bogged me down in this part. But after I got through that, it was fine. And these were a bit of a pain, but it was not their fault. I chose to first paint. I painted them all brass, and then I realized that some had to be steel. So I had to paint steel over brass. Did not work well. And also, the color that I used for that brass was Banelord Brass from Citadel. These are quite expensive paints, but this is a really good brass. This brass is just perfect. And then any of the hand-painted black was done with a variety of blacks. That includes Vallejo's black, as you can see here. But yeah, that's most of the painting. I think I covered all the colors. Any of the red, I just use a general color. It doesn't really matter. For instance, for the fire extinguishers that you can see in here. These are a little fiddly, especially because there's these little clasps on them, but they weren't that bad. And then there's a flashlight here, of course, which was quite easy. A lot of it I was able to assemble before I did any of the paintwork, but I kept this this is all a panel down here. I kept that separate so that I could hit it with the spray can first. Oh, and I also forgot to mention I dry brushed metal onto, there's really nice tread pattern in here, really nice diamond plate that you can sort of see, and I dry brushed metal over that just to give it an extra nice look. And then for these seats, they were painted with Vallejo's leather brown, which is over here. And then the edges were dry brushed with, were very lightly brushed. You can't really see it with a version of that paint with a lot of added white. And then as far as the rest of it goes, that's pretty much how the painting went. The building was pretty nice. There was a nice part here, which you can see, which I mentioned before. They provide you decals for these instruments. There's 4 of them. So there's one for each of these gauges. And then there's a little decal, you can't really see it, for the transmission chart under there. And then there's other decals in here. I didn't put them all on, just because some are fiddly, but I did most of them. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this sort of green here was, I believe that was a hand-mixed concoction made from this flat green from Vallejo with a little bit of that black that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the painting of the lower interior. As I said, assembly was pretty straightforward. The fit here was a little bit suspect. I suggest when you do it, this bar should stay off until you've mounted everything in. But as you can see here, it'll fit pretty good once you get everything locked in and assembled. Also, I kept these apart until the very end. That made it a little tricky as well, but it worked out. Yeah, so that's it for the lower interior. And then a recent addition was here. This is the upper hull, which looks a lot different from my last video. I've actually put in these really beautiful photo etch grills. I'll try and get in close on them. You can see they're super detailed, very, very nice. And then there was also the matter of the MG. An interesting thing about this is it can be made to be sort of posable. So as you can see, it can be loose to move around to get it into whatever final pose you want. But it is a little fiddly to get it this way. Also, for the hatch here, this front hatch, it just press fits in. So what I'm doing is I just have it press fit for the painting of the exterior. And then there's an extra part I have to mount when I want to glue this in the open position. Yeah, that was pretty nice. This Zimmerit went on really well. It hasn't peeled off at all. I still need to add a little bit of micro saw set because here there's welds that don't quite come through yet. You can't quite see them, but there should be welds here. I just got to get those to come out like I did on the underside. But yeah, it went pretty well with this. I haven't mounted, of course, any of the extra bits on the side because I want to paint those separately. And then there's 2 hatches. Of course, these are pretty nice. They will press fit into here, into the top. So you can press fit these in when you want to paint. After painting white around the edges here, you can just press these down, and then so long as you don't really give them a bump, they won't fall out, and that's going to be pretty good for painting. The same goes for the rear engine hatch, which is over here. This one is slightly fiddly because, as you can see, take a second to get in focus. There are 2 small photo etch handles. They're very nice detail, but I almost lost one already, so you really got to watch out for these guys. Okay, so that's it for lower hull. Also, you'll see here I've assembled some of the tracks. These went together fairly well. One thing is these are a little tricky to fit together. They're kind of tight, not quite as good as the Tamiya 1:48 Lincoln lengths. So what I would suggest doing when you're assembling them is, with the standard glue them together straight and wrap them technique, is to instead use this slow setting stuff that isn't the super fast Tamiya, because it'll give you a little bit more working time. Anyway, back to the interior. Here is the turret. Now this is a little dark, so I'm going to get a light in there. And as you can see, there is a lot of detail in this. I also painted a little silver around the ring for some detail. Quite nice. You can't see much, but oh, there goes the top hatch. But the breech is in there and everything. Looks real good. And I painted a little silver. Of course, it's still able to move. I don't know that you get quite the amount of gun depression you should have. I feel like there should be slightly more because I've seen them with tilted down guns, but I'm certainly no expert on the Panther, so I don't know how true that is. But yeah, this went really nice. Another nice thing is this hatch in the back here. It's actually workable. So you can just move it in and out as you please. It's a little on the fiddly side, and I lost a part, so I had to modify it with a piece of wire, but that's only because of me. That had nothing to do with the kit. Yeah, this will get Zimmerit on it and everything. I just haven't gotten to that point yet. Yeah, so far this is how it's going. The interior is pretty much finished, and I'm ready to. Also, the exterior is pretty much finished, and I'm ready to start after I add decals to this to start painting it. Also, another thing, the running gear. You can't see that. Here we go, the running gear. This was quite nice because what I was able to do here is I was able to glue it. So these are glued together. These are glued together. These are all in like individual wheels, so I can just pull them off. They're press fit. I can just pull them all off when I want to paint them, which is quite nice. They really stick in there. Another thing to watch out for is these braces here. They're quite easy to lose. As you can see, I had to replicate one out of photo etch here. But those are going to be for the oh, pardon me. Those are going to be for what I believe would be it's either the side fenders or the shirts, and these are just going to mount onto the side of the Panther. Like that. Give or take. It's a little on the finicky side, but we'll certainly get it. But yeah, that's most of the interior construction of this guy in painting. So thank you for watching, and in the next update, I will have this thing fully painted and ready to go.